table. He is against, Ryan, Grixis Control. It's another way you can go from Grixis Delver. Once they ban Deathrite Shaman, maybe just play a full-out control deck.
I don't love playing against Baleful Strix.
4 of it in the main here for Paolo Cersari.
Though without Deathrite Shaman, it's easier to daze. But there are some problematic spells hanging out.
And we have some swingy matchups here then. This one, I think the closest one. In the middle seat, Eli Kassis on Krark Clan Ironworks should be a favorite against Frank Skarren's Affinity deck. Similarly, I would expect Andrew Jessup to be ahead of Ted Felicetti's Grixis Control deck, based on what we saw last time earlier in the tournament with Andrew.
Yeah, those Vine Mares out of the sideboard, they don't mess around.
But once in Modern, as it is right now, just in general, Modern tends to be matchups-wise the swingiest format. I think we're going to see that this round. Jessup on 6.
Yeah. Skarren likely looking for the sideboard games against Ironworks. Sometimes you can go fast enough in game 1, usually not. Then a couple sideboard Spell Pierce are going to be a big deal.
Yeah, if he wins the die roll, I mean, Affinity is a deck, it usually turn 4 someone, it can turn 3 people.
Yep.
Turn 3 on the play will be more than good enough against Ironworks. They don't defend very well against that sort of thing.
Right. A hand that has turn 1 Overseer, turn 2 Ravager. Very easy to win on turn 3 with that. Inkmoth Nexus makes it even easier.
Sure.
But a lot of your hands, they are just at turn 4, and then you're just kind of testing the fail rate of Ironworks.
So let's look at Grixis Control here from Paolo Cersari. When I look back at when Temur Delver saw a ton of play, most of these cards were still around. The big up things is that Gurmag Angler and Fatal Push have entered the format, I guess, I'll use recently in a pretty generic way.
Sure.
So those entering, and then I guess Kolaghan's Command. So we see about 7 new cards in the matchup, and I expect all of them should push it farther toward Grixis.
Kolaghan's Command, not as much. A 3-mana spell can be tough. This build only plays 2 basic lands. So Wastelanding and then keep them in daze range for 3-mana spells is not a terribly tall order. Fatal Push is really good against Tarmogoyf. That is a problem. So this is a matchup where Jessup is really going to want Nimble Mongoose. He's going to want to make sure that he can keep these Baleful Strixes off the table, and Gurmag Angler is definitely a huge problem.
All right. Jessup wins the die roll, keeping on 6. Starts with Volcanic Island, Delver of Secrets. Correction, he kept on 5.
Yikes.
Now, it means you do get the Scry for your Delver, so I think if this creature sticks around, it's likely to flip. Paolo, meanwhile, goes after the hand. Here's Thoughtseize. It's Nimble Mongoose, Force of Will, Forked Bolt. And despite the fact there being no Tropical Island in play, Paolo will still take the Nimble Mongoose. And Jessup will transform off of Daze. Draws, swings for 3, and passes.
Temur Delver is a deck that's fine at mulliganing. You can mulligan to 5, but usually the games on 5 you're winning are the Stifle Wasteland games where your opponent doesn't really get to cast many spells. This is not shaping up to be one of those games.
Right, second land Fatal Push may just take care of the whole board, and that's exactly what Paolo has. So Jessup, he will Force of Will pitching Daze. Last card in his hand is a Forked Bolt. Just trying to ride this Insectile Aberration for the full 14.
Yeah, and on a game where Jessup has 7 cards, it's very rare that you would fire off a Force of Will on a 1-for-1 removal spell.
Right.
But if this Delver dies, he is in all kinds of trouble.
Paolo draws Baleful Strix off the Ponder. Now, Jessup hits for 3 and then ponders himself. He does have Forked Bolt to get rid of the Baleful Strix.
Yeah.
So
that'll allow him connect for 4 more points. 3 off the Delver, 1 off the Forked Bolt. Though the extra 1 off the Forked Bolt, not of much consequence here. Not the way the math plays out. Jessup dealing damage in increments of 3.
Yeah, I guess if Paolo's third land is a fetch land and for some reason he needs to sacrifice it, then that could knock the turn off. But that's about it.
Right. If Paolo's just running Baleful Strixes, I can't imagine Jessup being able to close this game.
Well, there is a fetch land, but here will be Baleful Strix from Cersari. And really, as soon as Paolo finds that removal spell, it feels like that's going to be the game. Fetches down to 10, so he has given up that turn. At 1 blue, it's probably just another cantrip here.
Yeah, I would expect a ponder.
Says go. Actually, just going to go ahead and go work his way around a stifle. Here's Forked Bolt, 1 and 1. Paolo to 9. Insectile hits him to 6. We're getting close. That extra life point Paolo gave away was not free.
Yeah, paid respect to Stifle, but is now in double Lightning Bolt range. He is playing 4 Force of Wills. He has a main deck counter spell. Some play against that sort of thing.
Fetches down to 5, and I believe we're going to see a Kolaghan's Command attempt to clean up both the Insectile Aberration and that last card in Jessup's hand. Fetching here so that he doesn't, I suppose, get Stifle Dazed, but there's only 1 card in Jessup's hand.
Yeah, that would allow him to stabilize in the battlefield here, though he does have to start worrying about closing the game. He really wants to find one of these 2 Gurmag Anglers.
Looks like it's just going to be another Baleful Strix then from Paolo. Force of Will picked up for Jessup. So now his damage, he's out. He'll cast Brainstorm. Force of Will, fetch land.
Like Daze?
Something else. Yeah, he's got 2 Force of Wills, a fetch land, and some blue card.
I think I misread that. I don't believe it is the Daze. But he doesn't have the resources to keep Force of Will blue card and shuffle away what he doesn't want. He's kind of stuck with some of this stuff. And there's nothing there to break through this Baleful Strix.
Right, so he just has to pass the turn back. And now Paolo can try to close. For Cersari, he has 5 cards in hand, has a Baleful Strix to block. And we're going to see that Kolaghan's Command. 2 to the Insectile Aberration, and Dan Jessup discards. Well, Spell Snare's not going to do any good. First update, Andrew Jessup over in the standard table does win game 1.
And he has those sideboard Vine Mares after that, so you do like Andrew Jessup's odd in his match.
I agree. Ponder from Cersari. That'll be a shuffle. So Dan Jessup's just playing off the top here. Now again, Lightning Bolt, Forked Bolt, 2 bolts. It's about all the burn he has. It's going to be a hard one for him.
Yep.
Not impossible, but pretty hard. And there is Force of Will still in Cersari's hand. Which means we're looking at 3 bolts.
And
because getting out of range.
Cersari's at 5, if he's able to maintain this uncracked fetch land, that means he has that 1 life to give if he has to Force of Will something.
Right.
Keeps him out of 1 Lightning Bolt range.
Well, modern matchups. Modern goes according to matchup. Ely Kassis takes game 1 over Frank Skarren. And then that modern table is going to put a lot of pressure on Dan Jessup. I don't think they can rely on Skarren to win the matchup. It would be nice if he did, but it's more likely that Jessup can come back here. No help on that draw for Jessup. It's just a fetch land. Cersari's defense is going pretty well. He doesn't have an offense yet, and again he shuffles off Ponder.
And he can ask for some pretty specific things. He's not losing to very much that Jessup can produce, and if he finds a Gurmag Angler, he'll close the game before Jessup can really say anything about it.
Yeah, it looks like his main ways to close are Snapcaster Mage, Gurmag Angler, and Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think any of those would be pretty welcome here.
Yeah, getting a Jace online, you'd be able to pretty effectively Fate Seal Jessup.
Here's a Brainstorm. No Jace, but he does find Snapcaster Mage. And, yeah, Snapcaster Mage, Fatal Push. You can see you're actually going to put the Fatal Push away. And
he has creatures pretty well covered. That Baleful Strix just goes into blocking mode if something that could attack shows up. The spells that deal with the Baleful Strix as a blocker are already the spells that Jessup's trying to combine to actually close the game against Cersari. So it's kind of interchangeable in either role there. Mostly just has to make sure that he covers any creature. Jessup just needs to assemble some combination of 2 lightning bolts and the ability to fight through Force of Will, which usually is going to mean 3rd lightning bolt. Theoretically, if Cersari just hard casts the Force of Will, producing no additional land drops, Jessup could daze through that. But yeah, this is definitely a Hail Mary situation.
Another brainstorm here for Cersari. And brainstorm back from Jessup. Paolo's likely fine with this. I think he has 1 copy of the card Counterspell.
Yep, there is 1 in the main.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, if you can execute that, then you leave up the Snapcaster Mage with the Counterspell.
Fetch land here from Jessup. That Counterspell is in Cersari's hand. He'd like to get Snapcaster Mage just into play somehow. Okay. Not yet. Back to work he goes.
At some point, just flashing back Kolaghan's command is a pretty big deal.
Here is Snapcaster Mage. Main phase. Target Ponder, leaving up Counterspell. And a bunch of Force of Wills.
Yep. Yeah, 2 Force of Wills available. Counterspell proper.
And finds a land that is not a fetch land. That's just about right.
Yep, gets to maintain that 4-point life total. Gets to leave up Counterspell and the ability to pay for 1 days.
And Dan Jessup does have a bolt in his hand now. It's a little late to think that that will convert.
Yeah, at this point, there's just too much in Cersari's hand. And he's playing in a way that suggests he's going to leave up that Counterspell. So I don't think that he's going to play this in the way that's it's so loose that Jessup's able to punch through, which is what Jessup needs. Jessup needs Cersari to misplay this hand pretty badly if he's going to be able to convert lightning bolts.
Yeah, Jessup picked up a wasteland here. So brainstorm, wasteland, lightning bolt. Kind of have to decide how he's going to try to get Paolo Cersari to mess this one up. Just passes for now. And now those Force of Wills are just hard counters. Swing for 3 sends Jessup to 10. I don't think we'll see Paolo Cersari cast another card.
If Jessup had fired off that brainstorm, what he would have been looking for would have been exactly Day's 2nd lightning bolt. Actually, I think he might...
He's still short.
Like, he wouldn't be able to fire off the wasteland and have all that, so he wanted to hang on there.
Now he goes for the brainstorm.
Found a Delver and a Stifle, like 2 Delvers maybe. No, just 1.
No, he has
2.
Two
Okay.
2 and a Stifle, and a Nimble Mongoose. Tons of threats, actually. I suppose you could just try to jam all of them, throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks.
The Strix is going to check 1 of them.
And that looks like it's going to be a plan. Here's Nimble Mongoose. That one is reasonably frightening. Now Delver of Secrets. That one. Diabolic Edict in response. That should take care of the Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah, there are 2 Edicts in the main deck for Cersari.
Delver resolves. Is Jessup going to cast his other Delver? He is. And that one, I think he's wondering whether or not it's going to get Force of Willed or Counterspelled. Or Snapcaster Mage, Diabolic Edict perhaps is better than both. We'll go with Snapcaster Fatal Push. And then Counterspell. Okay, so he takes care of all 3.
And now he has a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, and he still has those Force of Wills in hand, which he can hard cast. And that's going to do it. Dan, put Paolo to a test. Paolo passed, and we're on to game 2.
The game went on for kind of a while, though Paulo was pretty firmly in the driver's seat through all of it. He took some hits, but ended up on 4 life, and it really wasn't that close.
No, and that's what we're going to see, I think, in this matchup. If they play a while, once they both start making land drops, the cards like Baleful Strix are just going to start creating game states like that where Paolo's up 2 or 3 cards.
It's just such a low maintenance 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Strix is excellent in the matchup.
So Jessup will have to fight back. Looking at his sideboard, he has 2 Abrade, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Submerge, a Light from the Loam, Sulfur Elemental, Grafdigger's Cage, Flusterstorm, Rough Tumble, Sylvan Library, and True Name Nemesis. Now, I assume he wants to get bigger, get more threats if possible.
Yeah, you want more relevant interaction. The 2 Pyroblasts are great. You can catch Baleful Strix on the way down. It's a pretty big win. The Sylvan Library and the True Name Nemesis are the 2 kind of mid-ranging things that you're going to reach for here. And the rest of the sideboard honestly doesn't do too much.
Is Life from the Loam something he does here? I know sometimes in these grinding matchups you'll see a Delver player start Wasteland Loaming their opponent.
I think because he saw Basic Island and Basic Swamp, that's kind of a fool's errand. I don't know that he'd be able to convert that. Now, Life from the Loam does combine pretty well with Brainstorm. You get to pick up some extra cards, turn those into real cards, brainstorm away your lands, and then shuffle. That can be fine, just that element alone in a mid-range matchup, and sometimes you do just get to wasteland them off, but it's kind of medium. For Cersari, his sideboard is 3 Pyroblast, 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Pithing Needle, and Engineered Explosives, aimed at Turok, a Hydroblast, a Toxic Deluge, and a Vendilion Click. So he's going to go for more removal. Those 3 Pyroblasts, those are excellent. The Engineered Explosives is a clean answer to Nimble Magus, which is also excellent. The Toxic Deluge, more of the same. I don't mind the Vendilion Click. It's a little bit more expensive for what you get. It's okay.
How do you feel about Hydroblast over the cards like Burn in Dan's deck or over the Red Blast that you'd expect to see coming?
Because it's just Lightning Bolts in Temur Delver and Pyroblast that you fight over Hydroblast, there's just not enough targets.
So over in Standard, Ted Felicetti takes game 2. That ties things up with Andrew Jessup. Now, if you're just joining us or joined us recently, we have a full day's worth of coverage. You can find that over on our YouTube page, as well as coverage from our previous Opens. Our tournaments go live during the following week. You can also find other content from Star City Games, including our Versus Series, Commanders Versus Series, and Split Second. Find out the best of the SCG Tour and more. Just follow us over on YouTube. It's youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Tons of great matches stored there.
Winner of this round, that team will lock up their spot in day 2. The losing team will have to win round number 9 if they want to come back tomorrow.
Looks like we have some 7-card hands this time.
Yeah, last time Dan was on that mulligan to 5, and it really dictated how he had to play the game.
Right. Yeah, you saw an early, very defensive Force of Will, just trying to counter a fatal push. And then inevitably, Paulo was able to deal with the Insectile Aberration. You see here Cersari wisely cracking this fetch land while Stifle's down.
Yeah.
Grabs Basic Island, plays around Wasteland, checking all the boxes.
Yeah, I remember that frequently one of the strategies against Temur Delver. And Jessup will now set up with a Delver of Secrets. Spell Pierce to back it up.
Not likely to be anything that you want to Spell Pierce here. The card you want to fade right now is Baleful Strix.
I was going to say, I hope it's not a Strix, but it is. Paolo's got the 1/1 again.
That is bad news.
That card is just really good against this deck.
Correct. It's a number of matchups where their fundamental strategy is not very good against Delver. Food Chain is a great example of this, where sometimes they just cast a couple Baleful Strix, and suddenly you're actually losing.
It's like you're like, the rest of your deck doesn't work here, but Baleful Strix sure is good.
Right.
It's just a removal spell that draws a card that you can't Spell Pierce.
Baleful Strix does not pull its weight in the combo matchups.
No, I was going to say, I love seeing Baleful Strixes.
But against the decks that I like, it tends to be quite powerful. Ooh, and Dan's actually going to Brainstorm in response, hoping to find a Daze.
Okay. Does not find one.
Does gets to dictate transforming the Delver, but you got to get that Strix out of the way for that to matter.
I think he found multiple stifles.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's pretty medium. And the Strix resolves.
Doesn't even get to stifle the draw trigger.
Oh, the Strix drew another Strix.
Wow.
How fun is that? Dan will show Ponder. Transform his Delver. It's like Squadron Hawk, but Legacy version.
Squadron Hawk with Death Touch.
Yeah, Death Touch Hawk. That's how you can make Squadron Hawk playable in Legacy, if you gave it Death Touch. It'd be a fun card. Ponder from Dan. Brainstorm, Lightning Bolt, Stifle the top 3. Don't know that he has any more lands. May not matter. Picks up Lightning Bolt off the top.
Yeah, he's not too interested in hitting more land drops.
Bolt away the Strix and swing on in. And Paolo, is he thinking about fighting over Lightning Bolt?
Hey, he might be thinking about it. I can't imagine he'll do it.
All right. Cersari down to 16.
If, as you say, backup Strix is available.
Oh, it's there. It's Squadron Hawk.
That's just a Lava Spike. You don't need to fight over Lava Spike.
That's a good way to put it.
Something I enjoy about Cersari's deck list, and I don't mean the cards in it, I mean the way that he wrote it, is he didn't put the S at the end of bad lands, so he has 2 of the bad land.
It's not a good one.
And I just threw his deck list on the ground in accident, so I will have no more answers or insights as to what he is playing.
There is the second Strix. He'll draw a card. Interestingly enough, Frank Skarren's going to take a game over in Modern. That's the easy one. Now comes the hard one.
He has to be on the draw. Does have those sideboard spell pierces, but only 2.
Dan might need him. He still on those 2 lands makes Tarmogoyf, but that Baleful Strix didn't go anywhere.
You don't want to reduce a matchup this far, but sometimes you just lose because your opponent casts Baleful Strix on turn 2 when you're playing a deck like Temur Delver.
And 3. And, you know, there's still time on this turn.
Right. Yeah, the extra ones make things even uglier.
Diabolic Edict will take care of the Goyf. And now we're attacking with the Strix. Dan down to 18. Paolo still has, looks like, Force of Will, 2 Force of Wills in his hand. Kept those in. Sylvan Library from Jessup. Some good news for Dan Jessup. His brother Andrew wins 2-1 over in Standard. If Frank Skarren can get one more game with Affinity, Dan's not going to have to try to win this one.
Yeah. They definitely needed Andrew to win that one. That was the best matchup they had on the table. Things are rough here for Dan Jessup. And Skarren, he does have an uphill battle as well.
Enter Explosives on 2, and Cersari's going to immediately crack it, willing to give up his Baleful Strix to take care of that Sylvan Library.
It is true that Jessup could pretty easily draw 2 extra cards off the library. So I do kind of like that cracking of the Explosives.
Brainstorm from Jessup finds him a whole grip of lands and a Stifle. I don't know if any lands were fetch lands, though, so he may not be able to reset this.
Yeah, looks like he's kind of stuck with these parts.
I think he's got a bunch of duels and a Wasteland, so he's going to redraw those cards. A lot of Stifles in his hand.
Yeah, we're pretty well past the point of that mattering unless he can produce a lot more Wastelands.
Yeah. He's going to try. Ely looking on there. You see behind him Ted Felicetti. Here is Snapcaster Mage from Cersari. Just Tropical Island up. Not much that Dan can fight over. But he will stifle the Snapcaster trigger.
Yep. That's like a card for a card.
Yeah, he has, because Dan has 2 Stifles, it's unlikely that Stifle number 2 is going to do better than that.
Right. Not to mention that stifling on fetch lands when Cersari has so much mana already available isn't really worth a card. Whereas turning off some kind of flashback on the Snapcaster Mage, that's kind of worth a card. You still have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to start beating you up. And then you have the issue of the Snapcaster Mage going to st But you get a little bit of value off your Stifle anyway.
And Dan right now still just redrawing those cards that he put back with Brainstorm. Now Paolo's found something worth fighting over. Jace the Mind Sculptor was his draw.
Don't necessarily want to cast that one with just one backup mana. Spell Pierce is a card that's probably on the radar. Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast, you know, one of those two cards. Usually Pyroblast is something that just cleanly answers the Jace.
Now that Dan's redrawn all of those cards, he will cast Brainstorm. He's hoping to shuffle away both the tropical islands.
Yeah, finally got past those duels that were left on top. And he does find a fetch land, but unfortunately he found two of them.
Well,
Guess at least shuffle those other two duels away, though.
yeah. Life totals are just now reaching the point where Paolo is in the lead, 14 to 13. The Snapcaster not a quick clock by any stretch.
It's twice as fast as Baleful Strix. It is the second fastest clock available in Cersari's deck. Still haven't seen him be able to close really quickly with a Gurmag Angler. He is only playing 2 copies, though.
Attention players, it are 7 p.m. Copper Turbo. Pairings for round 1 of 1 are posted at the gathering point flag.
And the fetch for Jessup's that second Volcanic Island, double red. A lot more important than double green. Double green's only for casting multiple Nimble Mongooses or Tarmogoyfs in the same turn, whereas Pyroblast, a pretty important card post-sideboard in the blue matchups. Being able to cast 2 of those can be a big deal.
Dan equalizing up on mana. He's going to waste away. Got his pick. He'll go for Volcanic Island. So Paolo down to single red now. Now, is this the kind of spot can Dan... How easy is it for Dan to claw back into this game? He's started to even up on cards and mana.
Dealing with a Snapcaster Mage is not difficult at all. It's really the question of what's left over in Cersari's hand. I believe he's been hanging out with some Force of Wills, which if he has to cast those are going to be 2-for-1s in Jessup's favor. You get to start clawing back in that way.
Jessup's going to try for this True Name Nemesis. See teammates talking about the options that Paolo has available. He's going to Force of Will, pitching a Brainstorm. That's that 2-for-1 you're talking about.
Yeah, he would rather the True Name Nemesis resolved, but that 2-for-1 is pretty powerful.
And he has a interesting Snapcaster Mage. And we'll see a fetch from Dan. I guess to hope that could get a Diabolic Edict would be pretty wishful thinking, as we see another Stifle on a Snapcaster trigger. Dan down to 9, though. At this point, the Snapcaster Mages feel relevant.
Yeah, now Dan is really interested in finding that forked bolt.
Yeah.
I believe Jessup's hand contains both Daze and Spell Pierce.
So we're actually going to see Force of Will pitching Jace the Mind Sculptor on that Stifle, and then they're going to target Lightning Bolt. They're going upstairs. That sends Dan to 6. Paolo's going in for the kill here. Another Bolt and Snapcaster. That actually is it. So Paolo's Cersari 2-0 is going to go ahead and win the match. Interesting, he's ahead in a control game and then pivots to a very aggressive finish.
Yeah, just given the way the resources are playing out, made it pretty clear that those Lightning Bolts were going to be good. So he just, forced to make sure he got that Snapcaster Mage trigger and closed in pretty short order.
So we go over to the modern match here. This is going to decide it. It's Ely Kassis and Frank Skarren.
And Kassis looks pretty well ahead here as we cut into the modern match.
Yeah. We see on Skarren's side, Blink Moth Nexus Vault Scourge. able to attack for 2. On Kassis' side, we have Engineered Explosives on 0. That's what we're getting ready for Mem Knight and Ornithopter. We have Scrap Trawler, and then Inventor's Fair that's online.
Yeah, in the face of getting attacked for 2.
Yeah, Fair seems great.
Inventor's Fair is a pretty big deal.
And plenty of cards in Kassis' hand.
It looks like 5 of them. Darksteel Citadel is at the front of the hand, so we'll be able to keep developing his mana a little bit. I believe Mind Stone available just behind that.
Krark Clan Ironworks, the play here from Ely. He's got Scrap Trawler in play. And not a bad spot to be, and that's going to get Spell Pierced. Frank stays, more or less stays alive there.
He stops dying outright. He still needs to really increase his pressure if he's going to make it through this game, though.
Yeah, he needs one of the Haymaker cards, something like a Cranial Plating.
Right.
Right now, the best he can do is 2 damage per turn. That's barely making a dent through the Inventor's Fair.
Looks like he's just thinking about firing up Blink Moth again. That's nowhere near the kind of damage output he needs.
Now, Ely down to 14.
Consulting with Andrew Jessup on here. Another player who has played a good amount of Affinity. So the two get to share the experience of KCI overwhelming them slowly over time.
And Damping Sphere, the play from Skarren.
That buys some time.
Sure. That'll help Ely back up to 15. It will buy him some time. Now the question is, can he win? Can he do something that threatens?
Right.
So each spell costs 1 more than the spell before it. So from Ely's side, we see Mox Opal and then a 5-mana Krark Clan Ironworks. And then he will just pass.
Now, the thing about Ironworks, so it's a combo deck, but it also gets to leverage Engineered Explosives.
You can combo the real slow way here.
So from here, what Ely can do is crack that Explosives on 0, deal with those little cogs there, and then just put some other artifact with mana cost 1 or greater into his graveyard using that Ironworks, get the Explosives back, cast a new Explosives on 2, get rid of that Damping Sphere.
He'll have to be a little clever about how he does it, because to make 2 colors of mana, he actually needs the Mox Opal, which will be destroyed when he makes Engineered Explosives.
Yep, he'll have to float it through that.
Right. That said, all of this should be possible. And you see Ely setting up for that, making a green mana off Mox Opal.
Yeah, not his first rodeo.
And interestingly, with Engineered Explosives, you can kind of get around the Damping Sphere restriction when you play it the second time by just declaring it for a smaller number than you'd actually like it.
Yeah, very similar to the Thalia interaction.
Exactly.
Where you just use your colored mana to pay the extra.
So, cracks Engineered Explosives on 0 is where Ely will start. He floated a green mana first.
Also cleverly used the Mox Opal sacrifice to the Ironworks to pay for the Explosives, not leaving anything on the table.
It's heads up. Ichor Wellspring is the play. Draws a card. Those are the 2 colorless mana. 1 spell's been played this turn for Damping Sphere. However, like I mentioned before, he can declare Explosives on 1, pay for it for 2 mana. Shouldn't be a problem.
He also has mana available even if he just misses that interaction.
Yeah. 2 colorless. Sacrificing Ichor Wellspring, getting back Engineered Explosives. He draws.
As far as interaction points, there's nothing that Ely really needs to be afraid of anymore. Because of Ironworks, more than capable of paying for any spell pierce.
Yep. And explosive. And as mentioned before, he still does see the trick there. He only pays 2 mana for it, for his explosives for 1. Sacrificing Darksteel Citadel and Engineer Explosives on 2. And now the coast is clear. No more mana attacks. Mox Opal back into play. And here we go. Makes a green off Mox Opal. Sacrifices it for 2 colorless. He's up to 4. Still has Inventor's Fair at the ready if he needs it. It's going to be another Scrap Trawler down to 1 colorless. Sacrifices Darksteel Citadel back up to 3. Mind Stone down to 1. A healthy chain going here. He's going to sacrifice Mind Stone to draw a card off Mind Stone out of colorless mana, but he'll draw a card and get back Chromatic Star, it looks like, and Mox Opal.
Plenty of mana still available.
Right. So 3 cards there. We'll get Mox Opal back into play.
And Skarren now really just waiting for Ely to show him a loop. The game is all but over.
And Frank's going to stop it there. So Ely Kassis takes game 3. Frank Skarren makes a fight out of it. Mentioned before, that one was going to be the tough matchup for the Gurus, and indeed, it's how it plays out. So